Hello everyone, I'm thrilled, excited to welcome you to today's episode of our program series, Fiscal Interventions and Economic Growth on Armored Gates Radio Communications. I remain your host, Titidola Ogushono. I'm excited today because we will be discussing a global burning issue where we'll be looking at unpacking the implications and nuances of Trump's tariff policy. The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, declared that foreign trade and economic practices have created a national emergency. Thus, his order imposed responsive tariffs to strengthen the international economic position of the United States and also protect American workers. Invoking his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, IEEPA, is sought to address the large and persistent trade deficit faced by the United States. Looking at the first sheet released by the White House, we discovered that according to internal estimates, the United States firms pay over $200 billion per year in value-added taxes, VAT, to foreign governments. These are described as a double whammy on U.S. firms who pay tax at the European border, while European companies and firms do not pay tax to the United States on the income from their export to the United States. And looking at various statistics, you see the need for this tariff policy by Donald Trump. In 2024, U.S. trade deficit in goods was above $1.2 trillion. In the previous year, in 2023, U.S. manufacturing output as a share of global manufacturing output was 17.4%, and this is a sharp decline from what they had in 2001 when it was 28.4%. And from 1997 to 2024, this first sheet revealed that the United States lost about 5 million manufacturing jobs. This is said to be one of the largest drops in manufacturing employment history. So would not be shocked about the need to take this drastic step by the president. Okay, to discuss these implications and nuances of Trump's tariff policy, we have a seasoned, experienced geopolitical analyst in person of Mr. Abiodun Abari. He is joining us, is right here with us to discuss further on this global burning issue. Thank you so much, Mr. Abari, for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay. I'm already smiling because there's a whole lot. I have my jotting note here to learn a lot from you today, Mr. Abari. So let's just dive into it. I'll start with my first question. Well, I know your position on this is a bit dicey, but I'm going to still say it because the Trump's policy has mockingly been described as TACO. Okay, an acronym for Trump always sticking out. And recently, we learned that the 135% tariff increase threatened against China has been postponed by another 90 days, till November. So my question is, how does this impact the global economy? Okay, also, how does this also appear to other nations that are currently being threatened or are undergoing some form of tariff increase? We did get a sense that there will be some form of instability around this policy. And what is the implication of this policy, quote and unquote, instability for the United States economy? And already, there have been varying different opinions on this. Some schools of thought have said there's likely to be less investor confidence. And what's your take in all of this? And how would you consider, or what would you consider the most significant implications of this policy?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, we are actually experiencing a revolution in world trade, and President Trump is actually using all the tools he has to ensure that the global trade order is jigged. Okay, and talking about the connotation TACO, I I don't identify with it because when you say Trump always chickens out, I don't believe that someone who always chickens out to be able to achieve the position of U.S. president, or being able to even come back after January 6th and all that. Okay, so for me, that core connotation, either from a point of ignorance or from a point of desperation, just wanting to find anything that can stick. All right, so to the issues now. For Mr. Trump, he had an interregnum to really prepare for his second term, and I'm talking of the 4 years of predecessor, Joe Biden. Okay, and that has actually helped him to hit the ground running. So he had the agenda, all right, and he campaigned on these tariffs. I remember the interview we had at the Chicago Economic Forum, where he insisted that he was going to come with tariffs, and he was going to use tariffs, to achieve economic prosperity for America, to advance America's economic prosperity. All right. So Trump himself is largely the transactional president. Okay, and he looks at the cards, and if he has the cards, he plays them, and he deals with nations, based on the cards that they have. You can see the differential treatment, between India and China. Okay, is sanctioning India, with 25% tariffs for still buying Russian energy. Okay, saying that Russia is still having money, getting funding for the war in Ukraine. Okay, undermining his own peace process. Okay, so imposing secondary tariffs on India. But meanwhile, China too also buys Russian energy. China buys more Russian energy than India, but has not done that with China, because China has the cards. China is the geopolitical rival of the United States. Okay, and China has rare earths. Okay, and China was always wielding the rare earth card during the previous negotiation that they had. All right, and that actually prompted Mr. Trump, to include the rare earth deals, in negotiations with Ukraine. Mr. Zelensky, recall when he was at the White House, and prodding him to sign the minerals deal. Okay, and also the peace deal between Congo and Rwanda. You can see that the rare earth supply deal was also integrated into that deal. Okay, so of course that will be a longer term some sort of arrangement for the United States to completely win off China's supply of rare earth minerals. Okay, so China has the card. China is a geopolitical rival. Okay, and China is also arguably the largest navy in the world as this moment. Okay, the United States cannot even keep up with the level of production of China when it comes to naval infrastructure, when it comes to naval equipment. All right, so China is not India. So Mr. Trump understands this, and that's why he's dealing with countries differentially. Okay, and we talked about decreasing investor confidence. But my opinion is the contrary. Okay, because I see record investments pouring in the United States. Okay, from Nvidia to Amazon to Meta, they've all announced ambitious investment plans, right? And you also recall that the trade deal with the European Union too. European Union invested $100 billion by 2028, in addition to the existing $100 billion yearly by EU companies. Okay, and recall President Trump's tour of the Middle East. Okay, before the 12-day war between Iran and Israel, he went to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. Okay, and investments poured in. All right, and they also got what they wanted from Mr. Trump. Okay, it was a geopolitical exchange. Okay, they wanted recognition for the new government in Syria. He was a former Al-Qaeda guy, and they wanted recognition for him, and they wanted the sanctions to be removed. All right, and Mr. Trump did that and went to Syria and called the man a nice guy, removed the sanctions, and investments poured in. So I don't think there's any decrease in investor confidence in the United States, but rather the record investments pouring in. Okay, so Trump is actually playing his cards. Okay, and the United States being the largest consumer market in the world. Okay, and you know that the consumer pattern of Americans is somewhat unsuspicious. Okay, so I mean, so it's producers having, it's suppliers having, so everyone wants a bite of the cherry. Okay, so Trump understands this and knows that okay, a 15% tariff across the board, will not increase prices, will not cause inflation in the United States, because producers will want to remain competitive. Producers will want to continue to have bite at the cherry, will have a share, of the United States market, and will not stay competitive. They might just devise other means to cost or rationalize and just bring in more efficiency to ensure that yes, they are still be able to compete when it comes to the price. So Mr. Trump understands this and is able to play that card and ensure that tariff revenue accrues to the United States. I think $29 billion last month accrued tariff revenue, and without causing inflation. And of course, the dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So he has those cards, and he's playing them to the United States advantage, and he's actually getting away with it. Okay, so for a country like India that has been slapped with a 25% tariff, and of course Brazil too, 50% tariff, and you know that the situation with Brazil, although India and Brazil have the BRICS issue, okay, and President Trump has been big on the BRICS issue. Okay, so talking about reordering the trade system, okay, we really have to understand how Mr. Trump is using this reordering. He's using tariff as a weapon, all right, not just for economic benefits, but also for other geopolitical interests. Okay, look at the Brazil situation, where the former president Bolsonaro is undergoing legal processes for actually alleged coup attempts against the current president Lula, right? And Trump has touted that the justice system is being weaponized against Bolsonaro. Of course, Bolsonaro is a conservative, and President Lula, who was right there at the formation of BRICS in 2009, now the current president, governs from the left. Okay, Lula has said that the judiciary is independent, that he's not interfering, but President Trump is having none of that and has slapped 15% tariffs on Brazil. So that's really not an economic goal. So that is a geopolitical goal. So arguments about the weaponization of trade, weaponization of tariffs, also somewhat valid. Okay, so we look at all this scenario, and we have to, as countries, largely we start looking for alternative markets. Okay, and it's very important to understand that there are markets that might not be able to rival that of the United States, and even if countries have alternative markets for their goods, for their products, for them to win of dependence on the United States, okay, there will still be that attraction that as long as they have access to that market, it will always be a first choice for them. As long as the United States consumers still spend big, as long as the United States consumers still spend big, and the dollar still dominant as the reserve currency of the world, I believe that whatever market, alternative market that countries create for themselves will still be an option. And the second choice, that the United States, being the largest consumer market, has its own unique place, and everyone wants to actually sell to the United States. So that actually gives Mr. Trump that advantage. You just get away with what he has been doing.
Oh, okay, thank you so much, Mr. Barry. You said a lot within this short time. Okay, and I agree with you that the United States has the largest consumer market, and this is unique to the United States, and it could be an advantage. And also that you've also explained that the president is a transactional president. That's the reason for differential treatment. Even what we're seeing between India and China. I also note that the peculiarity of China being the geopolitical rival of the United States now. And your position is that there hasn't been decrease in investor confidence, right, Mr. Barry?
Absolutely, there hasn't been increase. Yeah. I mean, the data shows the opposite. What you have, the facts show the opposite. Yeah, you have more investments coming in from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, from UAE, from Amazon, from Nvidia, from Apple, from Meta. So what we have is we have even manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States.
Okay,
so
okay, good.
I believe that there's more investment as well. Yeah.
Coming. Okay, you even spoke about the estimated $600 billion coming in by 2028. Okay, from the EU, right? Now, my question now is: yes, you've seen that your position is that it's going to relatively increase the level of inflation. Okay, in the United States at 15%, you are assuming that producers are going to get more efficient with their productive process, so that the price not really impact price. Do you think this is an overestimation? Is it a realistic estimation from your end?
No, it's not an estimation. It's the fact. Last month, I think inflation was 2.1%. I mean, then the new data, 2.7. So largely, what I'm saying is inflation has been contained. The tariffs have not impacted inflation, and that was what made that was the argument Jerome Powell made. Okay, in not cutting rates. Before you could cut rates, that to see the impact of the tariffs on inflation. Now, if there's no inflation, we will cut rates. Okay, but Trump has said the economy needs to be boosted. That if you cut rates, that mortgage rates will go down. I mean, then the credit card rates will go down. There will be increased consumer spending, and the GDP will be impacted. Okay, and there's a controversy about the job figures, because Jerome Powell was pointing to the job figures, impressive job figures, to show that the economy was doing very well, and rates did not need any cutting. But recall that the rates were the figures were revised, by great margin. You understand, and that shows that yes, that the economy needs by cutting rates actually, right? So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I'll move on. Again, still looking at the Trump tariff, Mr. Barry, it's been said that there is a reordering, just like you also noted when you were speaking earlier on, of the World Trade Order. Well, we have the biggest economies being impacted. We have China, and even the big trade war between the US and India, who have been long-time allies. Okay, and Trump recently threatened implementing a 50% tariff increase on India, and remember, and that these are the world's largest economies, the USA, the China, and of course India holds a significant place. Okay, now first and foremost, I wanted to talk about more explicitly what does this mean for the current World Trade Order or the Global Trade Order. Okay, and as it is known, and is it actually really changing, or is this change better for the rest of the world? Because we already see instances of other nations like Canada, Australia, and Britain strengthening their previous ties. Okay, and as this happens, when other countries begin to have allies outside of the United States, because already we have countries that have been strong allies of the United States, like India and UK. Okay, what will happen to this? What is the impact of this globally? Is this going to be for the greater good or benefit of the rest of the world? Or does the United States really use such powers that these tariffs are not good for the rest of the world? What's your take on this? And the perspectives of the implications of this?
You see, clearly, just like I said previously, the man in the White House is a populist nationalist, and he has an America First agenda. So globally, people should expect that whatever policies is bringing, we have, to better the world economically. And America's hegemonic tendencies, are well documented. Okay, so and you have to understand that it's not about benevolence, okay, and it's really about relevance. It's about what you bring to the table, all right, and it's about the cards, just like I said, all right, and I told you that what the United States is accusing India of itself is doing. Okay, United States, still imports uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry from Russia. You understand? Even palladium for its electric vehicle industry, and also fertilizers and petrochemicals. Even the European Union trade, the Russia trade for 2024 still reached about over 67 billion euros. You understand what I'm saying? So, and even EU still imports LNG from Russia and all that. So is that not hypocrisy? But that's the reality of geopolitics. You understand? That's the political realism. You understand what I'm saying? So there's no benevolence. So so everyone has to come to the table, playing the strong hand. All right, and the strong hand that you're playing, you understand, has to do with your geopolitical stature. I told you that China is still being given a reprieve because a China-United States confrontation is different from the United States-India confrontation. The impact on the world economy is different. You understand? So you don't treat each country the same way. You understand what I'm saying? For United States and China, with the extension to November, hopefully they will come to an agreement, and there will be stability in the geopolitical economy. So, of course, the reordering is going on, and Mr. Trump has been a consequential president in this second term, and is actually implementing that agenda, reordering the global order. So, countries now, of course, we look for alternative partners, training partners, trying to ensure that this system is not weaponized against them, especially when the goals are not economic. You understand what I'm saying? When the goals are not financial for the United States, when they are geopolitical goals, like what I pointed out in Brazil, where the issue is about the prosecution of the former president Bolsonaro, or in India, where the issue is about getting peace in Ukraine, and that India's patronage of Russian energy is helping Russia fund the war. You understand what I'm saying? And with the secondary tariffs, and you can see that Mr. Putin himself has called for a meeting. I think they are meeting today in Alaska. Has called for a meeting. You understand? So, secondary tariffs too. So, Mr. Trump is not just using the tariffs for economic benefits, but he's also weaponizing them to achieve other geopolitical benefits.
That's a lot, and I like what you said, that it's not about benevolence, it's about what you bring to the table. And it also shows a president that understands the terrain well. He knows the weakness, he knows the strength, he knows the resources. He's aware about what every country has, okay, and he's really playing it hard. Okay, and that's what a lot of us see. And we spoke about the geopolitical stature. And now that's something you said, and I want to take you up on it. And that is what a lot of people like economists are complaining about. Now, when you talk about tariffs, when you talk about taxes, when you talk about government expenditure, You are actually looking at economic tools which should be used for the benefit of the citizens, and it should be used majorly as an economic tool to improve your gross domestic product, to lead to economic development. Okay, now but you see this case right now, that President Trump is actually using this tariff more like a political tool, or what we call political wrestling, rather than an economic tool. And you mentioned the case of Brazil. Now I want to ask you, because I know that you're a geopolitical analyst, but you also understand core economic issues. And from the perspective of an economist, I've stated it earlier that fiscal intervention, fiscal policies, the tools of fiscal policy should remain, to be used majorly as economic tools rather than, political tools. Now, I want to ask for your own perspective as a geopolitical analyst, that should tariffs really be used more for political than economic reasons? Because I'm looking at what benefit does that bring to the United States as a nation? Because if the president is using this as a political tool, is it in the best interest of the nation? And also, I wanted to also look at the impact of this on Brazil. Okay, because the argument is that other nations can, trade with Brazil. At the end of the day, is it likely to have a similar effect even on Brazil itself? What they'll just do is to pursue other trading relationships, as other nations are doing right now. Okay, and if that happens, if Brazil decides to replace the US as a result of this politically motivated tariff, you've also spoken to it. Now, if, as it is alleged, okay, if this happens, do you think it is the benefit of the US?
Yes, thank you very much. I believe that the leaders are actually having, are free to implement whatever agenda that they have the mandate of their people to implement, and we reckon that Mr. Trump, in regaining the White House, he actually won all the swing states in the U.S. presidential election. So he had the sweeping mandate, and I think he wants over 80% of the counties in the United States. So he had the sweeping mandate, and people voted for this agenda. People voted for what he's doing, and he campaigned on this tariffs. Like I told you, that he was interviewed during the campaign at Chicago Economic Forum, and he extensively explained how he was going to use tariffs. And although he was countered by the moderator, and he insisted that that's what he was going to do, and he was explicit about it, and people voted for that agenda and implemented that agenda. And he is being able to use the tariff to achieve other objectives too for the United States. He has already set the agenda, so, and people have voted on that agenda, right? So it's like people have endorsed whatever he's doing, and if people don't like the agenda he's implementing, midterms are next year, and people will be able to make their voices heard, showing their content. So that's my opinion on that. That he has the mandate to use the tariffs to achieve other geopolitical interests, and other nations to have to pursue their own interests. Like I said, there's no free lunch and there's no carte blanche. So people have to work and earn whatever goodwill and whatever benefits that they have in the geopolitical space. For Brazil, of course, the tariffs is not something positive for them, okay, and they have to seek alternative markets, because a 50% tariffs means you are not welcome, means you cannot compete, okay. Yeah. 15%, yes, absorbable. Manufacturers, producers, countries will find a way around that, absorb it, and they will increase prices, and they will sell the largest consumer market in the world to have share in the market, right? But when it comes to 50% tariffs, Brazil has to look elsewhere. That is if President Lula continues his defiant stance, because I believe that it might not be sustainable, that he might come to the table, that he might bend, okay, because in the long run is what you have the opportunity to find a replacement. Okay, it's not something I can just do a short term. Okay, and maybe eventually Brazil, of course, Brazil's, China, and other countries, India, trading partners, UK, the EU. Okay, quite well and good, right? So, but two factors. Number one, there is no market, like the United States market. You understand? Okay. No consumers that the United States consumer. The United States consumer, they consume excessively. It's cultural to them. You understand? That's why they're largest consumer market. Okay, so replacing the United States market is not something that I can say you can adequately do. You can just try to, okay, because that market is not replicated anywhere in the world. I don't think that there's any country where they do high level consumer spending like the United States. All right. And number two, China, that Brazil wants to look to, China itself is undergoing sort of economic unraveling. China has issues. China is slowing down. You understand? So China has issues economically, and the political issues have compounded the economic issues. So I believe that Brazil eventually will come to senses and try to negotiate with the United States to remove these tariffs. I mean, so that maybe by actually giving former President Bolsonaro a soft landing, so that Trump has his geopolitical interests achieved and Brazil can have its own economic interest to achieve. Okay, so for Brazil, for me, I think Brazil will still have to come to them, because replacing the United States is something on the long term. And you all want to look at China. China too is not healthy economically now. China is slowing down. China is slowing down its investment abroad because its housing market has unraveled. You understand? You have, Evergrande has gone bankrupt. Even BYD, electric vehicle giants, is having issues. Okay, and you have like 4 CEOs committing suicides in prominent CEOs in China in the last 3 months. Due to bankruptcy. And you know what bankruptcy means in China is a death sentence. Not like in the West, where it's a reset. It's a death sentence. So people prefer to commit suicide to save their families, because if they are alive, even their children can't go to school. They are ostracized. They can't. You understand? So they prefer to commit suicide so that their family can have a clean slate to continue their lives and so on. So that's just the scenario.
Okay. So for Brazil, replacing the United States, according to you, will be a long-term strategy. Is not likely to be what they want to consider in the short run, and it's going to have far-reaching implications on their economy. Now, thank you so much for those detailed, insight from you. If you're just joining us, the program is Fiscal Interventions and Economic Growth. And with me, I have a geopolitical analyst, Mr. Abiodun Abari. He has been, discussing the topic today, which is unpacking the implications and nuances of Trump's tariff policy. We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be right back.
Harrogate, founded in 2008 out of a desire to build transgenerational structures for organizations, institutions, and nations. We have worked with large businesses, international development organizations, and public sector ministries and agencies. Harrogate, our uniqueness is that we do not just work for you, we work with you. For example, we do not leave you to the task after sourcing talent that will help the new hire settle into robust leadership development programs. We are technical experts in advising and supporting institutions on strategy and leadership, artificial intelligence, strategic human resource management, public sector reform, finance, audit and tax, FAT, and strategic communications. We do all this and more out of a desire to transform nations through institutions and organizations. For further inquiries, email contact at thearmorgate.org or call +234 810 999 6666 +234 807 957 4151 and +161 0504 6026 www.thearmorgate.org. Armorgate, building to endure and transforming nations through institutions and organizations.
Yes, thank you for staying tuned with that commercial break. We've been having Mr. Biodun Abari. You've spoken a lot now, and he has told us that the tackle, Trump always checking out. Acronym is either from a point of ignorance or when someone just wants to say something that is not true. Okay, and we've seen that President Trump is a transactional president, giving differential treatment, and is very strategic with his approach. He's not a one-size-fits-all approach. He is very deliberate about using the fiscal policy, that tool, as a weapon. And we spoke about that fiscal policy, the tool should be more of an economic tool, not a political tool. And Mr. Barry has made it clear that whatever, it's not about benevolence, it's more about what you bring to the table. And US is playing the strong card, and it depends on your geopolitical stature. So it's safe to say that countries, nations around the world should work on having a very strong political, geopolitical stature. Okay, so it makes it, easy, from negotiating, from a position of strength. Okay, I wish we could go on and on, but we need to wrap up. So, Mr. Barry, I'll come to you. I want you to give us your final thoughts on the questions that we have, asked thus far, and we want you to know that you join us next week for the concluding episode. Is that okay, Mr. Barry?
Yes, definitely. God willing, I'll be with you next week. God willing.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so can you give us your closing thoughts thus far?
Yes, Mr. Trump is actually implementing his America First agenda, and I believe that every country in the world too should put their country first, so that we can have an integration of national outlook, and people can actually, and nations can actually achieve their potentials. Okay, so that's actually able to dilute imperialism. Okay, so because I believe that globalization, in as much as is desirable, has its own sort of downsides in terms of usurping sovereignties and implementing the agenda of a select group. Okay, so that's it for me.
Okay, thank you so much. I will not leave any closing thoughts. I want to take it off from what Mr. Barry has said, that the President of the United States is implementing what we call the America First agenda. So we expect other nations to look inwards and come up with their nation's first agenda, putting your nation first. Okay, that is it. That's all we can take on today's episode. Remember to join us on other programs next week. It airs Monday to Fridays, 5 p.m. WAT. For our concluding episode, it's going to be another interesting. We are bringing it back home, coming to the continent of Africa. What the implications of this policy on Africa? We're bringing it back home to Nigeria and some other issues that we're discussing. It's going to be another insightful, expository, engaging session with Mr. Barry. He has expertise, both depth and breadth experience on these issues. Okay, remember, for your comments, for your feedback, your questions, and send a mail to contact@theamorgate.org, and definitely Amorgate has got you covered for your consulting needs, training needs, communication needs, IT needs. We are there. Just check us up on our website, www.theamorgate.org, and definitely our social media handles are there for you to see what we do and to listen to previous episodes that you have missed. Just go to our YouTube channel, kindly subscribe, and we have about 280 videos from various issues perspective waiting for you to listen and learn from. So that I can find my way to your devices next Friday, 5 p.m. WAT. I remain Titola Wishana, saying bye from here and wishing a fruitful and relaxing weekend ahead.